I've been doing Beyond the Headlines for a couple of weeks now, and what me and the team really like and look forward to are your comments. So don't forget to tell us below what you think about the show, what you like or don't like, and especially if you have suggestions for topics that you want us to take up. And of course, don't forget, this channel needs your financial support, so if you can, it would be great to get your donation. Click on the link below. There's a short little story by Asghar Wajahat called Lynching. You may have seen it doing the rounds in Hindi or Urdu. Last week, Professor C.M. Naeem, the well-known Indian scholar of Urdu, who teaches at the University of Chicago, sent me an English translation, and I'd like to share it with you because today, in Beyond the Headlines, I'm going to be talking about lynching. When the boys came and said to the old woman, "Grandma, your grandson Salim was lynched by some people," she didn't quite understand. Her darkened, wrinkled face and her pinched, clouded eyes showed no feeling. She just covered her head with her poorly patched chadar. Lynched was a new word for her, but she could guess it was an English word. She had heard a few English words previously and by now knew what they meant. The first was pass. She had heard it when Salim had passed his first school exam. The second word she had heard was job, and she knew it meant getting employed. Salary was the third English word she'd heard and understood. It always brought to her nostrils the smell of gently roasting rotis. She believed that all English words were good, and that this new word too must have brought some happy news about Salim. And so she said, "May God bless those people." The boys stared at her in disbelief. Should we say what lynching means, they thought? But none could find in himself the courage to explain the word to her. Just then, it occurred to the old woman that she ought to at least bless the bearers of the good news. "Sons," she said to the boys, "may God grant you a good lynching too. Now, if you'll wait a moment, I shall bring you something sweet to eat." Lynching has emerged as a disturbing new word on the political landscape. And anyone with a basic sense of morality, reason and justice believes India has a lynching problem that needs urgent remedy. Last week, Justice Adityanath Mittal, head of the Uttar Pradesh Law Commission, submitted an important report to the Yogi Adityanath government on mob lynching. The report included a lengthy analysis of the legal challenges involved in preventing and prosecuting violence of this kind that has taken the lives of some 50 people in UP over the past few years and of 95 people across India since the Narendra Modi government first came to power in 2014. Most importantly, Justice Mittal presented a draft law, the Uttar Pradesh Combating of Mob Lynching Bill 2019, for the government's consideration. Since the report and draft law are initiatives the UP Law Commission took on its own without any political prompting, we have no idea what the BJP state government of Adityanath intends to do. Going by the BJP's track record at the centre, however, Adityanath may not move quickly to implement the proposal for a tough new law. I say this because it's been nearly a year since the Modi government set up two high-level committees last July to, quote, formulate appropriate measures to address the situation created by incidents of violence by mobs, unquote. One committee was headed by the Union Home Secretary and another by the Union Home Minister, and we were told that their mandate was to suggest how the country could effectively deal with incidents of mob violence and lynching, including the possibility of a new law, as had been suggested by the Supreme Court in July last year. Well, the Committee of Secretaries presented a confidential report to the group of ministers in August 2018, but then the whole matter seems to have gone into some kind of deep freeze. In January this year, all that the government was prepared to tell Parliament when Congress MP Shashi Tharoor asked a detailed set of questions on the recommendations being considered was that the GOM is seized of the matter. 6 months later, there's been no update. It is against this backdrop of political apathy that the UP Law Commission's report takes on enormous significance. Justice Mittal has not minced any words in his introduction. One of the most stinging descriptions of the dangers of mob violence was Mark Twain's response to a racial lynching in Missouri in 1901. He saw in it the danger of America turning into the United States of lyncherdom. The secular Republic of India, more than a century later, appears to be amidst the shadow of a similar fear. Those are strong words. Justice Mittal notes that Prime Minister Modi has condemned violence and lynching, but he says this is not enough. I would like to appreciate that our Prime Minister has spoken something after the silent protest, "Not in my name," throughout India and even abroad, he wrote, adding, "But merely lip service is not the solution of the problem. It is high time to take strict action against the so-called Gaurakshak." His report cites the laws against hate crimes and lynching made by South Africa and Nigeria, and his draft law envisages swifter prosecutions, punishment up to life imprisonment for the guilty, and compensation and rehabilitation for the victims and their families. Speaking to The Wire, Justice Mittal said that a large proportion of the mob lynching incidents are perpetrated by Gaurakshaks. He said this is true not just of Uttar Pradesh, but across the country. However, he added, mob lynchings have also been reported on the suspicion of child kidnapping, theft, and interreligious marriages. In fact, the most recent incident of mob lynching, in which a young Muslim man named Tabrez Ansari died in Jharkhand after a mob beat him and also forced him to chant Hindu religious slogans, had nothing to do with suspicions over cows and beef, but appears to have been the product of general communal hate. An inquiry report has also indicted the police for negligence. Aware of the fact that politicians and the police are frequently hand in glove with communal thugs, Justice Mittal wrote that sometimes the perpetrators appear to be in sync with the political regime of the day. More importantly, his draft law recommends punishment for police and district officials who fail to stop lynching incidents. I should note, however, that while dereliction of duty is already an offence under the Indian Penal Code, policemen are rarely, if ever, prosecuted for this crime. I also feel the punishment that the UP Law Commission suggests, which is 1 year in jail, is not enough of a deterrent for these kinds of policemen. The Nigerian law against lynching mandates 5 years in prison for any security officer who fails, neglects, or refuses to make all reasonable efforts to prevent a person from being lynched. One could also make the wider criticism, as some lawyers have, that new rules will not help if existing laws are not stringently implemented. Laws against hate speech, for example. And this is where the political element is important. Even as we applaud the UP Law Commission's initiative, it is upsetting to see no less a person than the Prime Minister trying to divert our attention away from the heinous nature of lynching as a crime by saying in Parliament about Tabrez Ansari's killing that Jharkhand mob lynching is sad, but why blame the entire state?
युवक की हत्या का दुख यहां है, सबको है, मुझे भी है और होना भी चाहिए। लेकिन क्या एक झारखंड राज्य को दोषी बता देना यह शोभा देता है क्या? फिर तो हमें वहां भी अच्छा काम करने वाले लोग ही नहीं मिलेंगे।
I'm sorry, Mr. Modi, but no one blames the whole of Jharkhand for the mob lynching any more than anyone blamed the whole of India for the massacre of Sikhs in November 1984. These were crimes against the nation, crimes against the people, and the more politicians like you pretend otherwise, the more you become accessories to the cover-up. The fact is that Modi fully understands the political significance of mob lynching and what it is intended to achieve. There is no empathy towards the victims in his words of condemnation, nor is there any commitment or conviction when he promises strict action against the perpetrators. That is why Justice Mittal is right when he says merely lip service is not the solution. What India needs is action.